All right, greetings everyone. Welcome back to the Lessons Learned channel. This is Zunomvalo, and I am so excited to be back. It's been a long week without speaking to you. I was a bit of under the weather since I traveled to KZN this past weekend. In fact, this past week. Where I had to just, go and see the family since I was not able to go home in December. So I think that the difference in weather really got to me, and I contracted some minor symptoms, some minor flu symptoms. But I'm back. With a bang. I'm back by popular demand because I have been receiving messages from people asking me to please upload another video because they have finished all the ones that are already available on the channel. So this gives me so much hope that the train is moving. What I'm trying to build here is really starting to find a place in people's hearts, and that really warms me up. That is actually one of the reasons why I got up early today and I decided that I am going to shoot this video, flu or no flu. And even if I'm not out of the woods yet, but I am feeling a lot better and I am ready to start, this topic, which I believe is going to take a while because it has been a long journey, with alcohol, sometimes with drugs and all of that. And I'd like to get, into that topic now because I feel like I have, given you a foundation of who I am. Like I said, if you have just joined, if you have just discovered the Lessons Learned channel, this is a platform where I share my life-changing experiences. This is a platform where I talk about things that have impacted my life, things that I've been through, things that I survived, things that I overcame, things that were meant to knock me down, but somehow by the grace of God, by the strength that I have within me, I was able to rise from them. So my journey to sobriety is a topic that's very close to my heart, because if you're following me, you'd know that actually on the 8th month now without touching alcohol, and I am so proud of myself because that is something that I never thought that I could do. We even used to joke about it with my friends back then that, hey, there's no exit here. Genile, like, yeah, once you're in, there's no coming out of this one. And I think we had made peace with it, even though I don't think we were happy about being hooked on something that you can't really easily get away from. So I am proud of the 8 months that I've managed to stay away from the bottle. No matter what life threw at me within these few months, I have been able to take it, in my sober senses, deal with it, and most importantly, move on, without having to drown my sorrows or anything. So for me, that is a big thing because I remember times where that was not a possibility. I remember times where I expressed my happiness through drinking, my stress, my anxiety, everything. Like alcohol becomes everything. So I'm going to be getting into that. I did speak, about it in previous videos that I started, experimenting with liquor when I was 18 years old. And that was in my matric year. That's when life, starts getting a little real. That's when you start seeing yourself as a young adult, someone who is now permissible to do certain things without the consent of parents or guardians. So I was also at that point, and my birthday coming in February also worked in my favor because my guilt conscience was a bit low. As I said, no guys, I already turned 18, so I'm the legal age, I'm able to do this. So how do you start as a young person to start drinking? Like I started drinking out of curiosity, really. Like other people were already doing it, like in my circle, and they were cool. I mean, they were enjoying parties, they were attending this and that and turning up and popping up, and they were drinking. So that is how it started. Like, it was just, okay, let's taste that. What's that? Smin of spin. Let's have that. And that's when now I started drinking. And I remember the first days, because I was staying in a boarding house at that time. I think that is also how I got to do it, because I come from a family of strict Christians. Like my parents and my family made it very clear that they not very fond of alcohol, because they had seen what it does to other people. Like, it had been destroying lives, it had been killing a lot of dreams, people with potential. You could see a person with so much potential actually not getting to achieve all of that because they unfortunately became alcoholics or something like that, and were therefore unable to fulfill those dreams and those desires. So I think that my family, seeing what alcohol had already been doing in other households, decided that they would not accept it as something that we should be indulging on or something that we should be engaging on. So going to the boarding house gave me that liberty to try new things that were not permissible at home. I did say I'm gonna cough here and there, ladies and gentlemen, so please bear with me. Yeah, so started, and I remember there was throwing up, there was hangover here and there, but overall it was enjoyment, because we are going to parties, we are enjoying the music. Like, when you're intoxicated, like, the music feels I don't know, it feels more, like you feel it more, and you just want to dance and you're having a good time. So at first it was not like a matter of concern, it was just something that we did in private, because we were not even open about doing it, because we knew that as 18 as we were, but it was still against, like, the principles that had been laid out at home. So I did it, and it was okay. I remember my mom finding out that I'm drinking, and she was not so thrilled about it. She actually didn't even want me to go to university, because she thought that things would get worse from there. And she was right. So I did go to university against her wishes, well, because she was really not happy about it. I think for her, she even wanted me to do like distance learning to make sure that, like, I do not like get into this trap that she could see I was falling into. Unfortunately for her, like, things didn't happen that way, and I still managed to go to university. And that's when things really got onto another level. Like I said, like in matric, it was just entry level drinking, where you are just experimenting, like you're trying this out. But I realized that when I got to tertiary, it got onto another level, a whole different level, because you are now with people who have been doing this longer than you have, who have experience on even how to make it even more enjoyable. Even the outfits that they wear to the groove, like, they show you that, no, these people know what they're doing. This is now becoming a lifestyle. So I saw that happening for me too, where it really now became a lifestyle. So you start planning from Wednesday, where you going on Friday. Hey, I remember in Maritzburg that time there was still Madlula's place. It was popping. So we used to go there. We used to party. And when you are a freshman, when you're in new university, the first thing that happens is events, like they welcome you in style, and all of this includes a lot of alcohol consumption and partying. So I got into it, and I recognized it as a culture that I would really partake in. So I did. And before I knew it, like, I was just like a drinker. Like, I was drinking openly, and my family knew, because like I said, my mom found out when I was in matric that, no, this one is already drinking now. So what parents don't know is that, like, in those parties, and like in those parties, a lot goes on, because I never planned to start experimenting with drugs. In fact, I was very terrified of drugs, because like I come from a family where drugs are a huge deal, even from my hometown at that time. At that time when we were growing up, like drugs were still a big deal. Like they were not to be heard of. Like it was taboo. It was so bad to do drugs. So I didn't want to engage in such. I felt like alcohol was enough, you know. And I remember that time how I was introduced now to the ecstasy drug. So ecstasy is a party drug. It's like it's very popular in social spaces because of its happy effects. Like it makes you happy, it makes you jolly, like you will start hugging everyone and telling them that you love them. You dance, you dance, you dance without stopping. It keeps you awake all night. Like it has its own effects. Like when it hits you, like when it like gets into your system, even like a person hitting like a plate with a spoon like this is danceable to you. That's how effective it is, and that's how it takes over your emotions. You can literally walk up to a person that you haven't spoken to in years and spark a conversation with them and solve whatever quarrel or issue that you guys were holding on to for all these years. That is the power of ecstasy. So I was introduced to it this way. I judged my friend, you know, I judged her. I was like, yo, you do drugs now. I was surprised because we went out, you know, to a nightclub as usual, and she wasn't drinking alcohol. She was drinking Powerade, and she was more energetic than any of us. She was so happy and dancing and, you know, having the best time. And I'm like, what are you having? What are you having, Tommy? Because I see that you're not drinking alcohol. She's like, no, I don't drink alcohol. So she was just smoking cigarettes and high or drunk on whatever that I could not see. So I told her, like, I became judgmental. You know, I was like, I hope you're not on drugs. Like, bro, never ever do that. Like, we've been warned against that. Like, you can't get away from it. Like, what if you become a hobo or like a street kid or whatever? Those were like my fears. And you know what my Tommy did to just shush me, and because maybe she just saw this you know, rural girls when they come to the city and they don't know things. So I think that's what she also saw, and then she just put it in my drink. She put it in my drink without me knowing. So I drank, like I had my normal drink, and I just started feeling different. You know, I started wanting to dance. I started feeling happy. Why am I so happy? Like, you know, and that is when she was like, so you're feeling it now, you're enjoying it. And that is why I got into it. That is why I got into the drug. I was like, so happy. What is this? Like, what in the world is this now? And why, like, you could do anything when you were high on that thing. You could actually even walk your best friend to the loo and actually sit with them while they do number two. That's how loving you'll be. You won't even feel the smell. Like, it just tempered with everything, you know, like that. Anyhow that you're feeling when you're normal, you couldn't, like, you just felt however the drug wanted you to feel. And that was always too good to be true. Like, too good, too happy, too excited, too free. That is how you felt. So we started doing this thing, and I was like, no, I like this feeling. I like this feeling. So I started doing it, and we just called it the happy pill, like siyaguinya. We, like, that's how it's called in social spaces. Umguinyo, ibeno. It has so many names. I grew into it. I started enjoying it more than, like, there came a time now when I couldn't enjoy being drunk without that extra touch that it gives, you know. So you would find us going to the dodgiest places. You would find us, you know, compromising so much, like no food, like choosing not to go to a restaurant to eat just because we wanted, because you know that once you're high on the thing, it takes away your appetite. For a couple of days you're not gonna feel like eating because it's still there. And another thing I noticed is that, like, when you're like intoxicated on it, you bite yourself. I think everything happens so fast, and you're dancing and you're talking, and like you bite yourself like inside the mouth. So you usually have blisters inside that really like take away your appetite, and you really don't feel like eating. So those are some of the things that you had to go through and endure if you wanted that fake happiness that it gave, because you knew that it is fake by the way you came down. Like when the drug was wearing off, you started feeling so depressed. You went from 100 to 0 very quick. You went from being so happy, being so jovial and so loving, to depressed and anxious and paranoid. You felt like you feel doors closing, and you feel like people are looking at you, and like it's not a good place to be in when you're coming down from the drug. So what we usually did when we felt like the not so good effects of it coming is maybe drink more, and like you'll just find us smoking cigarettes, just to tone it down, because you can feel the instability in your body, and you can feel like the effects that this thing is having on you. So if you still have a bit of it, the best thing would be to just take it back, and then start feeling happy and calm again. Or you drink and drink and drink, so that you start feeling better, because the feeling is unbearable. Like you want to cry, you are depressed, you feel like such a sinner. And another thing is that, like, because you were so happy during those moments of happiness, there's a few things that you consider to be wrong. Like I could see, like, if you can just hug your enemy, if you can hug people that you don't even normally look at, so much can be done, like during those times, that you start feeling bad about it the next morning. You're like, did I really just do that? Sometimes you're going to be watching videos of yourself doing stuff that you wouldn't normally do in your sober senses, or like when you're drunk. And that is when you see now the difference between being high and being drunk. It's not easy to see it if you have never like had the experience with drugs and all of that. So those are some of the things that I had to adjust to, that now after a weekend I'm going to be sick for like Monday, Tuesday, and only start getting better maybe on Wednesday, because hangovers are much more intense when you're on drugs. Like it's a lot of chemicals and things wearing off your body, so it takes time. I realized how much time was wasted just in recovery, just trying to get back to feeling normal, just trying to get back to like eating again. And I remember that the first day, like when you're feeling normal, you're going to eat like it's going out of fashion. You're going to eat, like you are going to finish everything, because you suddenly have the appetite that was gone and missing for a couple of 2-3 days. And at that time we even learned how to drink like amageo, because you want something to be in your tummy. After some time of not eating and not sleeping, you start feeling a bit queasy, and you don't want that for yourself, and maybe you want to continue drinking and partying. So you start thinking of other ways on how to keep things in your body. So like that is how I started, and it became now a lifestyle. It became something that I knew, like, okay, like I'm gonna do this. If I'm going to drink, I know that I have to have a budget for my pills, so that I'm gonna pop them and then the party can go on. But what I also noticed with myself is that growing up, like even when I was in the party scene, I've never been a fan of like going to like nightclubs and all of that. I always preferred to be like in house parties and all of that. I have never been like a fan of going to super crowded places, because I always feel like the crowds overwhelm me, and I end up not having the fun that I had planned to have. So I noticed that I was not really hooked on ecstasy for its party effects, or I was really hooked on it for peace of mind, because I noticed that I would do it even like in my house, like in the apartment. I would do it, like just close the curtains, put my headsets on, and blast some good music, and sometimes, most of the times it would be gospel music. So oftentimes when people do drugs, it's usually to go out and have a good time. It's not to sit around in your room thinking about your problems, thinking about things that are not going well in your life, thinking about where you went wrong or whatever. So I think that is one of the things, or some of the things that led me to depression. That is also some of the things that led me to anxiety and all those suicidal thoughts that I was battling with at the time. Because who does that? Like, who buys drugs only to get intoxicated alone? Like, who does that? I remember even when I was narrating this to my friends at the time that I do that, they were like, Zoo, you're on another level. I think what they didn't realize is that I wasn't on any level. I was just using a party drug wrongly. Like, I was not using it for what it was supposed to be. I was so hooked on the happy effects that it gave that I wanted the fake happiness for myself. Like, I wanted it because at that time it was something. It was, at least it was better than nothing, because those were the times when I was battling with unemployment, with like just being limited and stagnant in my life and feeling like everything is not going well for me. So that happiness, even though it was fake, even though it was short-lived, it did go a long way at the time. And I can also not like there's also like one thing that comes to mind when I think about that period, how the friends that I had at that time stood with me and supported me. I'd like, to send a word of gratitude to those girls, like Barbara, I remember Zam, I remember Mbali Mngiti, those people, Tandega, those are the people who were there for me. I remember how you guys like stood up for me. I could name all of you guys, but that circle that I moved with at that time, they were really there for me. Of course, like, there were friends who were not good, where the betrayals and the disloyalty came from. But I did have people who had my back at that time, people who were not happy with the way my life was going, and people who were trying their all to support me. I remember telling my mom a while back, like when we used to have, my girls and I used to have like weekend aways where we would just book a place, buy food, buy drinks, and everything that you will need. Those who do drugs will buy their drugs and we'll just chill there as girls the whole weekend doing our thing. I remember how we used to drink and smoke in those getaways. But one thing that really stood out for me during those sessions was the round table therapy sessions that started out of nowhere. So what I can say about ecstasy is that it's one drug that gets you talking. Like, if a person gives you ecstasy, trust me, you are going to tell them your deepest, darkest secrets. You're going to tell them things that you had not planned to share with anyone, things that you plan to take to the grave. So because of that, I noticed that things were coming out, and we established this roundtable session where, like, when we're up there, like when you're really feeling it and you're up there and you're high and all and you're drunk, and we started opening up about stuff that was going on in our lives at that time. It could have been the problems, it could have been the unemployment, it could have been anything like that was weighing you down at that time. And that, you speaking out of it gave the others grounds to advise you, grounds to hug you and love you and give you the support that was required for you at that time. I remember how useful and how impactful those became for me. I even would tell my mom that as much as you don't approve of this lifestyle, as much as you don't even approve of the friends that I have, but most of my healing is coming from those times when I bare my heart, where I open up, on those round table sessions that we have in our drunken state, in those wee hours, you see, when the substances are up there and you now feeling the urge to speak about anything that is troubling you. So I could never take those for granted, because a lot of perspective came from that. And I actually learned also the concept of opening up and letting things out, that it really helps you, to move on from some things. You can't keep bottling things up, because if you keep bottling things up, they keep piling up, and one day you will explode. And your explosion will not be a pleasant one, because a lot of trauma piling up can never be good for you. It can only be toxic. So those really taught me something about communication, that sometimes, even if you are doing the wrong thing, but maybe who you are doing it with will assist you. Okay, because it's not everyone who can just wake up now and decide that they do not want to drink anymore. Like, maybe the level of depression that you are in right now requires you to drink. I know a time when I wouldn't have heard anyone telling me to stop drinking, because I felt like my life depended on it. That is why I'm not so big at telling people to stop drinking. I am big at sharing my experiences and why I felt like I had to stop, because it wasn't working for me anymore. I know times when I felt like alcohol saved my life. I know times when I wanted to get on top of that chair and hang myself, but because alcohol was there, it actually stirred me from doing that, from ending my life, from taking the whole book and throwing it into the fire when I felt like doing it, when all the odds were pointing to it and I felt like there was no other way out of my situation. So sometimes it doesn't matter what you're doing. What matters is who you're doing it with, because the people that I was surrounding myself with at the time, some of them were really helpful on my journey of healing. Some of them really, really pulled me out of some really dark places that I found myself in at that time. So thank you to those people who played a role. I may not mention all your names. In fact, I don't even feel that comfortable mentioning people's names on this channel, because I speak mostly about stuff that people don't want their private lives splashed like that. Like, I made a conscious decision that I'm going to do it. So if I don't mention your name or anything, don't get offended. It's not my intention not to acknowledge you. I actually appreciate it, and everyone who has played a huge role. In fact, no matter how small of a role that you played in my life, I appreciate it, because it has led me here, and it has actually led me into the person that I have become. So yeah, I also so that is why I can never take for granted those moments, because I did meet some of the most amazing people, and sometimes I got some of the most amazing advice that I did not get from church. I did not get from my law-abiding citizens. I got it from my wretched friends at the time that I was popping and turning up with. And also but now, looking at some of the negative things that happened during those times, or maybe if I want to generalize things that happen when you are using drugs, you can agree with a lot of things, and because maybe you're surrounded by people who are also doing them, you also feel that those things are correct. So it's very, I would advise people to stay away from drugs, because you don't know what they put into those drugs. You don't know what ingredients are there and what effects can they have on you, on your body, in the long run, or even in the present. Because how many people have we lost due to taking the wrong drugs. You know, how many people, you know, like when I'm actually thinking on that topic, I remember when music, ecstasy pill music was killing the youth, was killing so many people. I was still very, very high. I was still very deep into my drug consumption at that time when music was killing people. I remember that was the time when I was in Ermelo as a public relations officer at the local radio station there. I had taken it, and I remember getting a call from my friend in KZN saying, "My friend, please don't take anything. Like, there's only poison on the streets at this time." But it was too late. I was actually on my second day of horror. So what happened is that we had hosted an event, and I took this pill. Like, I was very excited to even find it because it was not easy to get ecstasy as easily as it is in KZN, in Mpumalanga, where I was. So getting it was a big deal for me, and I jumped into it, not knowing that it was the music that was killing people at the time. Yo, I will never forget the effects that it gave. The paranoia. The paranoia started when I was still at the club. I couldn't even stay because of how bad it was. And I went home. I remember I was shaking. I was shaking. And I remember, yo, oh my God, like I could see like things. I was hallucinating. I actually know how people were dying, like when they were taking music. I know how they were dying. I felt like that had to happen to me so that I knew how they died. Their hearts were stopping because at that instance, whatever that you were imagining, you could see it. If you were imagining someone breaking into your house, you could literally see them. I remember that time I could not even walk to the bathroom because I was so scared. I was so scared because I could hear people trying to open my door. At that time, I was staying in a guest house that didn't even have a lot of guests, you know, checking in on a daily. So I could, in that guest house, spend like 3 to 4 days without any guests, so alone. You can imagine how quiet it was. I was scared to even walk to the bathroom because if I imagined a man peeping in the window, I could actually see them and I would be so scared. I don't know how many times I opened my window trying to check who was coming through the gate because I felt the gate opening. The level of paranoia that was happening was insane. I remember even wishing to call an ambulance, you know, to just go to the hospital and get them to detox this thing from my system because I could not take it. That was, yo, that was scary. That was scary. And that actually made me realize the risks that we take when consuming these drugs, because you're actually buying a substance, an illegal substance, from somebody that you cannot even hold liable. No matter what happens to you, even if you die tomorrow, you can't hold that person liable because you know that it is against the law. Like, you are not even supposed to be taking it in the first place. That is why, like, even when like I was coming back, like not looking normal, it was easy for me to say that I'm drunk, you know, to my mom, because I couldn't really bring myself to say that I'm high. You don't want people knowing that you are on drugs. But trust me, if people know you really well, they can tell with, or like through your behavior, if you are high on drugs or not. And I would urge people, if you see someone acting strangely, doing things that they don't normally do when they're drunk, it might be a sign that they have started using drugs. And if you love them, please speak to them. Speak to them while you can and find out why they've started using. Because most of the time, you judge people harshly. You just say, you're using drugs. What you don't know is that drugs are an escape. Drugs are an escape from reality that people cannot face or deal with at that time. So if you really dig, if you really go down to the archives of the heart of an addict, you will be surprised at what you will find. Because most of the times, those are the people who are carrying so much pain, so much trauma, so much baggage that they feel like they can't cope with it, and now they need an outlet, they need an escape. So that was the story of my life as well. I felt like every time I couldn't take it, I just wanted to pop it, and be happy, because I know that for that weekend, I will forget my troubles. I took it far, like to a point of just even switching my phone off. And I would say things like, hey, all I know is that if I'm not a Muslim, whoever dies now, they will not be buried when I come back. It's not like in the Islamic culture where when you die now, you have to be buried. I used to make that as a joke, to be like, you know what, I'm switching my phone off. Whoever is dying can die, because I didn't want any disturbances. I was so committed to my fake happiness at the time. It was the only one that I had. So I grabbed it with both hands, even though it was destroying me. I was losing money that I didn't have. I remember the regrets the morning after, when now I realized that I could have used this money to buy my child this. I could have used this money to get this and this that I had been promising myself that I'm going to get. But look at 500 rand, look at 1,000 rand going down the drain, just like that, for something that actually made me so sick as well, so paranoid, so anxious, and so depressed in the end. So you could see that these habits are not really making me happy, but still I'm so hooked on this thing. And at that time, it was making sense. At that time, I could defend it. At that time, well, it was all I had, and that is what I did. So before I end this, and I promise to continue more, because there's so much that I'm going to be tapping into and getting into when it comes to my journey with drugs and alcohol, like how it can actually tamper with you and your future and your destiny, how it can prevent you from becoming the person that you were originally designed to be. But I'll end this on a good note and say that thank you once again for joining my channel. Thank you for listening. It means so much to me to know that you sit down with your Wi-Fi's and datas and listen to me. I did this so that I can raise awareness about issues that affect us as young people, and also to get parents as well to understand their youth, that sometimes being harsh won't help you. Sometimes you have to sit down with your youth, find out what is bothering them, find out how they got hooked on what they're hooked on, and how you can help them, because oftentimes you can help them. But I feel like what doesn't help or aid the situation is when now you decide to throw them out. When you find that they are using, you throw them out, or you punish them, or you perpetrate the situation even further. So I did this so that we can actually get more understanding and more, because sometimes it's easy to judge something that you don't understand. So thank you so much. Keep those subscriptions coming and put your notifications on. I do appreciate seeing your comments on how you feel about the messages that I'm conveying here. I do want to apologize if I offend anyone with anything. Trust me, it is not to do any of that. I am just here trying to do the best that I can, because I am out of the woods. I am out of my drug addictions. I am out of alcoholism. I am 8 months sober and proud and doing this. And I have seen the positive results that came out of it. I am now at a point where I'm able to put my plans into place, to execute them with diligence, because I have all the time. I'm no longer dealing with fake friends. I'm no longer dealing with the negativity. I'm no longer dealing with hangovers or headaches that come from drinking and abusing alcohol and drugs. So because of that, I am confident that I will achieve the dreams that I wanted to achieve in this lifetime, because what is stopping me? Not even the sky is the limit. So once you learn and conquer yourself, trust me, you will be unstoppable. Once you gain self-control and you are able to overcome stuff that once overpowered you, trust me, you are ready to tackle anything that life throws at you. So with that being said, I feel like this is a good place to end this recording for today, and I promise that I will see you on the next video. For now, take care of yourself, stay safe. I love you so much. Peace out.